Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm going to give people just a few minutes to pop in before we get started. And if you want to take a moment to share it on your social media platforms, please feel free. But I'm excited about our conversation tonight. So I'm going to give it about just 2 seconds before we get started. All right. Welcome to all my lovely, beautiful panelists. I'm super excited to have you. Thank you for joining us tonight. All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight for what I believe is going to be a very, very, very important conversation. I'm Lisa Nicole Thiombiano, founder and stand-up survivor, executive director of Stand Up Survivor, and I've spent many years doing this work, walking along survivors, advocating for women, educating communities, and having conversations about domestic violence that aren't always comfortable, but absolutely need to happen. And that's really where tonight came from. Recently, I saw a post circulating online about abuse and divorce, and I found myself thinking about how quickly we can talk about what a woman should do when we're not the ones living inside our situation. We talk about marriage, we talk about divorce, we talk about forgiveness, we talk about faith, we talk about staying. But sometimes we don't stop long enough to ask what was actually happening inside that marriage. What did people not see? What did she live with? What did she try before she finally decided that she couldn't continue in this relationship anymore? And what does it actually take for a woman to choose life? So tonight I wanted to have a conversation. And I want to say something before we begin because I think it's at the heart of this conversation. One of the hardest things for a woman to learn to do is that choosing herself doesn't always have to mean leaving. Sometimes choosing yourself finally means becoming honest about what you can live with and what you cannot live with. So you can't control another person's behavior. You don't get to dictate whether they're going to change, but you do get to decide for yourself what you will participate in. You get to decide what you will tolerate. You get to decide what boundaries you need, and you get to decide what happens when those boundaries are violated. You're allowed to choose yourself. And now, just want you to know, disclaimer, I'm not here to tell you whether you should stay or whether you should leave, because I don't believe anyone sitting outside your relationship gets to make that decision for you without understanding what is happening inside of the relationship. Stay if you choose to stay, leave if you need to leave. But do not surrender your agency just because someone else has an opinion about what you should tolerate. And that's why tonight I wanted these women who lived inside these experiences to have the microphone. Tonight, you're going to hear from four incredible women, and each of them has a very, very different story. They're here to tell you what happened to them. These women are not defined at all by what happened to them. They are women who survived, and they are women who rebuilt themselves from the ground up. They are women who are doing incredible things in their lives and in the lives of others. So rather than me telling you who they are, I want them to tell you about themselves. Ladies, please, I want each of you to introduce yourself, not just as a survivor, but as the woman that you are today. Tell us who you are, what you do, what you're passionate about, and anything that you'd like people watching to know about you. And then we're going to get into it. So we're going to get into your story one by one. Let's start with you, Dr. Iris. Tell us about it.
Hello. Hi, good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Iris Pendleton, and I have a lot of titles. I'm a mother, a friend, a professor, and tonight I'm here because I'm also a survivor of domestic violence. But my life is more than the trauma that happened to me. I'm also someone who enjoys life. I love to travel. I love just everything about life and seeing the beauty and colors. Some of the things that I didn't know I liked, I've discovered as a result of being free from that abusive relationship. Today, I work as an advocate, sharing my story with other people to give them hope of being free. Because about 7 years ago, I was sitting in a place where I didn't know if freedom could actually exist for me. But now I have made it to the other side, and I have just an amazing story to tell you, and you'll get to hear more tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Iris. Dr. Robert, please. You're muted.
My apologies. I'm just talking. I'm Shonda Roberts, CEO and founder of nonprofit organization Pain to Purpose. I also am an entrepreneur with my own business, of course, Queen Crafty Designs. I am a wife. I am a mother of grown children. Praise the Lord. I am I am a worship leader at church. I am what else? Different hats, different times of the day, depending on the day. Right now, I'm here to talk with, of course, these other wonderful survivors on here. Yeah, so we'll get into, I guess, the story later.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Shonda. All right, Loriana.
Hello, I am Loriana Steele, and of course, I'm a survivor, but I am a holistic wellness practitioner, and my passion lies in helping other women and men too. But I really connect with women, so that's why I say women. Heal from chronic stress and regulate the nervous system and recover from whatever that stress might have come from. And that involves nutrition, that involves sound therapy and coaching and breath work and all kinds of neat modalities. And I own LS Wellness Solutions, and I co-own a wellness studio here in South Carolina called Lifted Soul by Elysium with one of my very best friends, Tamika. And so I am just excited to share how my story has led me to where I am now. I now do what I do because of my story. And so while it doesn't define, my past doesn't define me, it did define a really cool future. So that's where we're going to go with it tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Brandy, and before, Brandy, that I put you on, give me 1 second because I realize it is not streaming everywhere. So give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. All right. How about now? Can y'all check for me?
I'll check right now.
Let me know, y'all. So
I don't see it on IG. Let me check Facebook.
Okay, check Facebook for me.
Where was it not streaming?
It was streaming on YouTube live. It wasn't
on Facebook now.
It's on Facebook now. Okay, awesome. You guys missed the intro, but it'll be here. So once a while, it'll be here when you see it. But don't worry about it. We'll catch you up. We want to get moving on this. So here we go. Let's see, Brandy.
Hi. My name is Brandy Arp, and I am an MSW. I'm a mental health therapist, but my most important job is my 2 children. I became a mental health therapist because of my domestic abuse. I suffered with a pretty extreme PTSD. And so as I struggled with PTSD and got myself through graduate school, I realized that standing up for mental health, especially when it's at the hands of an abuser, is very, very worth it. I wanted to bring the same sort of healing that I had the honor to have the privilege to have access to that kind of healing. I wanted to bring that as well to whoever needs it.
And you do it so well, Brandy. I'm so excited for everyone to hear your all stories. Thank you guys so much. And if you're just jumping in, how are you? We're glad to be there. I have 4 beautiful women here who are going to share their stories. They did a short introduction, and now we're going to have one woman after another. We're going to start with Dr. Iris. And so I'm going to give these ladies a break and allow you a few minutes just to spend with Dr. Iris to hear her story and learn more about her journey. So, Dr. Iris, hi. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Awesome. So in the introduction, you gave us a little bit about your journey, a little bit about your story. So tell me, let's talk about you. You have free reign. Go for it.
Ooh, so my story begins. Well, I didn't even realize this, but when I went to therapy a little bit before I left that relationship, I realized that my story of abuse started in childhood. I was 5 years old the first time I saw a woman being abused. And throughout my childhood, I saw things like that happen. And I noticed that nobody ever called the police. Nobody ever went to get help. And so from a very young age, I was programmed to believe that, hey, that was just a part of relationships and love, because I had seen so much of that as a young person. And so I met my abuser when I was 19 years old. 19 is such a beautiful age because you're coming into young adulthood, but it's also a time of being very vulnerable if you don't enter it with the proper tools, which I did not have. And so my abuser, like most, he was very charming. He took me to the beach the first time we went on a date, and he took me out to nice places. And one of the red flags that I should have realized, but I just didn't know. I remember he got angry with me after going to a restaurant, and he threatened to put me out of the car on the side of the road in a neighborhood that just wasn't good at night because we didn't agree about whether or not he should give the waitress a tip. I should have been alarmed when he threw my cell phone over a building and broke it. I should have been alarmed, when he would cuss and say all kinds of things to me. But because from an early age, I had been taught indirectly that relationships of love had these kinds of things, I didn't know that I should have ran. And so I was with him 19 years of my life. And I tell people I went in as a college student, like the students I work with, as a professor, and I left as a mother of two entering middle age, which is a long, long time. And people ask, oftentimes people in my situation, we get asked to explain, well, why did you stay? They don't ask the abuser why he abused. And so I've had to come up with answers. And it's a complicated answer. Abusers aren't abusive all the time. They're not abusive when they go to church. They're not abusive when they're out, at parties. They're charming. They're abusive when the door is closed and there's nobody to see it but you. And so for a while, I lived with the hope that it could get better, and it just never did. And I also lived with this feeling that if I just do everything a little bit better, maybe he'll change. But nothing changed until I was willing to make that change and actually walk away and save my life.
Well, that was good. You said nothing changed until I was willing to change and do something about it. So at what point, you named a lot of red flags, a lot of things that people experience all the time. When did it click in your head that, wait, this is abuse? When could you put that word to what you were experiencing?
So it should have happened a long time before it did. But it was about a year and a half before I left the abusive relationship. I started working out. Everybody that knows me, I love working out. I'm at the gym a lot. And so I remember one day he walked in the kitchen and he's like, oh, your butt looks really good, but what are you going to do about your breast? And I'm like, what do you mean? So mind you, he hadn't hit me. He wasn't hitting me at the point when I realized what happened. And I said, what do you mean? When he said, what are you going to do about your breast? And he said, oh, if you ever got breast cancer, because I know it runs in your family, you could get implants to fix it. And so my mom is a survivor of breast cancer. And so I tell this story to let you know that, yes, my abuser did abuse me physically, but it was the mental games and the mind games and the things that he said to me that was damaging, because I had to decipher, is he joking? Is he really concerned? What's really going on here? And I remember Googling the comment that he made to me. And that was the first time I really saw something that said emotional abuse. Wow. And it made me start digging deeper. I've been hit before. I should have run. I should have known, hey, this is bad. But it took me a while to realize exactly what I was dealing with.
So it wasn't even the physical abuse that made you leave or realize that it was abuse. It was the emotional and psychological abuse that you're experiencing. Like somebody just put in the comments, the gaslighting.
Yeah, wow. Absolutely. And that's the part that still stays with me. Physical wounds can heal. I know what it feels like to have a grown man put his fist in your face and break your glasses. I lived through that. I was also that 5-year-old girl that watched people get hit all the time. But the psychological abuse is something that lingers. It took me a while to be able to take jokes from people because I didn't know if they were being harmful or if I needed to stand guard and protect myself. People's tone of voice, I had a hard time deciphering, okay, is this harmful? Is this okay? And it was the psychological abuse that was the hardest, because it's the one where you really have to try to figure out what's going on. And is it even, because on the surface, some of the things that he said to me, people would say, well, that's just no big deal. but it's the pattern. It's when somebody's saying things to you every single day, and they do it in a way to where nobody else sees it. And so that's one of the reasons why I have this whole idea and platform in a book I wrote called Now I Can Wear Pink, because my abuser, he also never told me not to wear pink, but he criticized me every time I wore it. He told me what I looked like, and he said some pretty derogatory things, even once comparing me to a female body part, based on how he felt like I looked. And so he never said, don't wear pink, but he said things that said, don't wear pink.
I think it's so powerful how sometimes people don't even realize the psychological aspect is so significant. And so what for you, I'm going to come back to that, but I want to ask you, what for you was the breaking point for you? When was the moment or the day that you decided I have to get out of this relationship?
So that day for me, I call it my freedom day. It was 6 years ago, July 25th, 2020. You know, the world was falling apart. It was COVID. And that was the day that I left the abusive relationship. But it was also the day that I almost lost my life. My abuser, he literally just lost it and came in the living room. I was there with my children, and he said, that's it. I've had it. And he put his hands around my neck, and he squeezed, and I did not know if he was going to stop. And I remember feeling something inside of me say, now you can leave. And it wasn't a literal voice, but it was that feeling, because I know as a believer, I had been praying to God a lot about what I needed to do. And I knew what I needed to do, but I kept making excuses for why I couldn't do it. And so I knew in that moment, that was my cue that I needed to get out. And I realized that was my last chance. And I don't know what made him stop squeezing that day, but he did. And he stormed out of the house, and me and the children, we grabbed what we could. We got in the car and we drove down the interstate as far as probably about 200 miles away from home.
So you just mentioned your faith. How important was your faith in your decision to stay for 19 years? 19 years. What part did your faith play in that? You had 2 children together.
So my faith played a role in some ways. I feel like it kept me there, but in some ways it also made me leave. And so when I say I believe it kept me there, in the last few years of my relationship with the abuser, he had fallen very ill and he had a lot of health issues. And so as a believer, I wrestled with leaving someone when they were at their lowest point. I wondered, what were people going to say about me? I'm leaving this person who's critically ill, who can't really take care of himself. But at the same time, he was still being abusive to me. And so I wrestled with, am I still kind? Am I still a Christian if I leave? On the other hand, my faith helped me to leave because, like I said, that day when my life could have ended, I literally felt, now you can leave. I knew that was it. There were just so many things that had happened to me up until that point, and I just knew I did not have more opportunities to leave and still be here. And so, yes.
Do you feel like that was your permission in that moment? Like someone had given you permission in that moment to say go, you know?
Yeah, I think so, because I had been looking for excuses over the years. And I remember I started journaling about 1.5 years before I left the relationship. And in my journal, there were times when things would happen and I would write about them. But in between the really bad things that would happen, like a physical attack or something that he would do to me, there would be the so-called good days. Mm-hmm. And so my journal would have some empty pages in between. And so, yeah.
So if you were talking to a survivor right now that is struggling with their heart, their faith, maybe I talk to a lot of survivors who have a sick partner, someone who can't take care of themselves, and they're wrestling, if I leave, what will people say? For someone who's wrestling with that thought process right now, may have experienced physical abuse or psychological abuse or both, what would you say to them?
I would tell them what a counselor told me. And this was the first counselor I went to. And I ran away because what she told me scared me. And I remember saying, I can't leave him because he's sick. I cannot leave him. And she said, well, what if you could still love him and care for him from a distance and get yourself and your children to safety? And so that's what I would ask that person is, what if they could still care for that person, but at the same time bring themselves to safety?
That's good. That's really, really good. You mentioned a good point. You said he was still ill, not well, but he still had enough strength to strangle you, to, you know what I mean, to do those still harmful things to you. And oftentimes abusers, although they're sick, if they can't physically hurt you, they're still hurting you with their words. And so I hope that someone that hears that really finds the strength, because that therapist, that was good. You can love them from afar and still care for them from afar. So tell me, what does your life look like now? How did you heal? How did you even begin the process of 19 years? You have 2 children, and now you're starting all over. How did you even start the process of healing? And what does your life look like for you?
It's been an interesting journey. And a part of it was that period about 6 years ago when I left. And you know this, Lisa, I would watch the live sessions that you did on Stand Up Survivor, and I would be there like every week, tuned in, watching. I did go to a counselor, and I actually started talking with her before I left the abusive relationship, because I realized, like I said, my journey of abuse did not start in adulthood. It started in childhood. So I had to go back and revisit all of that. I also had to learn what a healthy relationship looked like, because I really didn't know. I hadn't seen enough of them modeled for me, and I just did not know. And so it has been a process of healing. And so today I am married. I've been married to a really wonderful man. We've been married for 4 years, and he's really incredible. And so I would tell anybody, like, if you feel like, oh, my life is over, this is my last chance at love, be willing to take a chance. Because even if you don't find a love outside of yourself, one person you are going to start to love is you. And then once you start to love you, that can open up that opportunity for you to love someone else. And so I'm really grateful for that. And like I said, I am an advocate today for other people trying to leave. I give them the physical evidence that you can leave, because there are a lot of things that are causing people to be fearful. And I do realize the most dangerous time for a woman in an abusive relationship is when she tries to leave. But I want to remind you, like I tell everybody, my abuser tried to take my life before I ever left. He tried to take my life even before I had the opportunity to make that choice. So leaving is dangerous, but so is staying. And I believe you have to choose your danger, because it's going to be dangerous either way. And my abuser, he never stopped trying until he left this earth. He never stopped trying to open the door and get back in. But you just have to decide, would you rather live in the danger of being in that abusive relationship, or would you rather try that second chance at life and see what it's like out there? Because I can tell you, it was totally worth it for me to leave. And I think it will be for you as well.
That's awesome. Thank you, Dr. Iris. Is there anything else you'd like to say that's, pulling on your heart, or anything you want to say to any survivor that's listening?
What I will say is that the process of leaving, don't feel like you have to do it all in one day. My counselor, she told me, she said, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And somewhere in my house, I have a card that says that, because I wrote that reminder to myself. And sometimes people feel like they have to have everything figured out. Well, no. In my case, when I took that first move and decided to get me and my kids to safety, I did not have all the answers. I did not have it figured out. There were still difficult things that happened as a result of having that connection to an abuser that I had kids with. However, it was worth every risk that I took to have the life that I live today. And I tell my husband, he laughs because he sees me doing all of these things. And I said, I'm doing the things that I wish I could have done in my 20s and my 30s. But here I am at this wonderful age that I am doing it today. And it's like, just like the Bible promises, God will restore the years you lost. And I truly feel like that is the life that I'm living in today. And it's totally worth it to take that chance.
I love that for you. I get to see it all the time. I was able to meet her husband. He's wonderful. He's this big guy, and she's safe. She's always safe. And she has an organization. Now I can wear pink. So .com. Please check her out. She does conferences like retreats with women, all these wonderful things. So she wears pink all the time. She has a very good reason to do so. So make sure you follow her. Her website is on the screen right now, as well as on the social media platforms. And she has a book. Tell us.
Yes, so this is the book, Now I Can Wear Pink. It's wearing its own disguise, because if you've been in an abusive relationship, you can't have a book laying around talking about abuse or domestic violence. Trust me, I know from my experience. So I disguised my story. That's why it's in pink.
That was brilliant. Zana says, thank you so much for your courage and sharing it. Izzy said, the solid advice, not all in one day. Take it piece by piece by piece. I've known survivors who planned their escape for 3 years, 4 years, and then we create the safety plan, and when they're safe, they can leave. And so Dr. Iris, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to bring you back on toward the end. So if anybody has any specific questions for you, we'll be able to chat. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Shonda Roberts, welcome. Hey. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Please tell us a little bit about your story. Tell us where it started for you. How did you know it was abuse? Your abuser. Tell us about it.
So I did not know it was abuse. It started at 15. I was listening to Dr. Iris, and she was saying hers started at 19. And when I think back to that, because I just turned 50, so that was 18 years ago. But it started at 15. I married my abuser at 19, and I finally broke free. I around 22, 23 years of age. Now, I did not know it was abuse. Of course, I did not know what it was. I just knew that it didn't feel good, and it didn't start off with him just hauling off and hitting me. No, it started off with buying me things and taking me here and taking me there, and just being the nicest, sweetest person ever. I did not have a lot of, I had older brothers, but they were gone to the Navy. One was gone to the Navy, one was gone to the Army. And I didn't have a good relationship with one of them. And that actually was the first person who struck me that was a man. And so I endured sibling abuse well before another man put his hands on me. And so the people who I was around, that was normal. It was normal for a man to hit you, or abuse you or verbally abuse you. So I didn't have anyone to go to. I actually had a good friend at the time. I mean, the years have gone by now, but I had a good friend at the time who we were close, and I was telling her what was going on. She said, well, I'm going through the same thing. I don't know what to do, but you better stay because he takes care of you. And but the first time he put his hands on me, we were sitting in the car. He was talking to his friends, and I rolled down the window, like I'm ready to go because I haven't been sitting in the car for a good little while. And he just looked at me with this look of disgust or pissed off or whatever. And he got in the car. He drove straight into some woods, because where we were on this one street, there were woods down there. He got out the car, snatched me out the car, and just proceeded to punch me all in my head. My head was his target from that day to 9 years. He never hit me in my face. He never hit me anywhere else but in my head, because he wanted people to see the bruises. Because around the community, he was this good guy. As we got older, the abuse got worse. It didn't stop until the day I left, actually. And the abuse went from him physically abusing me to now I'm trying to fight back, because now I'm 19, 20, and I'm like, okay, enough is enough. But the more I fought back, the worse it got. And what made me marry him is it was that cycle of abuse. You know what I mean? It's tension, it builds up, and it's honeymoon season, and it starts all over again. And it's very confusing for victims, because you think everything is better now. We're in the honeymoon stage, and he's taking me shopping and buying me things and telling me he loves me. And he never necessarily talked to me as if, he never called me names and things like that, but he was always very firm and strong, and demeaning, you know what I mean, as far as telling me what to do, and very controlling, very, 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 very possessive and obsessive. He want people to look at me, people would talk to me. He would literally dress me up, take me out, and dare somebody to speak. And if somebody spoke, it's my fault. So it was one of those type of relationships. I didn't know how to move, how to breathe. Should I speak to this person? Should I say hello? Because it turned into abuse. We'd be in the car driving, and he would just haul off and hit me in my head. There was a time I did decide to leave, and we statistics say that victims will leave 7 times or more than 7 times before they leave for good, and I left several times over and over again, but leaving always caused him to find me, physically drag me back, or beg and cry. It wasn't always aggressive when I went back. It was leaving flowers at my job. It was, buying me things again, and begging and crying and pleading, and, oh my God, I'm so sorry. How could I do this to you? I love you so much. I will never do this again. And I will fall for it every time. It got to the point where I stopped trying to leave because it was my new normal. I guess this is what life is going to be. I guess this is what it is. So let me just stop trying to run, because he finds me anyway. He eventually found me up before he kidnapped me. I was literally at a party outside, and he dragged me, like literally walked up to me, put me in a chokehold, and there's hundreds of people outside watching this. This wasn't off in the corner, off in the cut. It was in the middle of the road, and people were standing there, and no one helped me. No one said a thing, and that kind of told me that no one's going to help you, because that happened quite a few times. It would happen in front of people and nobody would say anything. And he dragged me, put me in the car, and drove me to a canal. Threatened to throw us both in the canal. We ended up leaving there, going back to our old apartment. And then I got out of the car and ran to a payphone to try to call somebody to help me. It's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And as I'm at the payphone, it always reminds me of a horror story. I hear his footsteps, and I hear his footsteps. He's running after me. So I ran behind the store by the dumpster, and he found me, and he dragged me all the way back to that apartment. But I refused to get back in that apartment or in the car. So I started screaming, and the maintenance man that lived in the building heard me and called the police. So when the police came, they were like, "We were looking for you," and I didn't know. So apparently someone did say something. There were helicopters around. There were police looking for me. They had been looking for me for like an hour or two. So that was one of the times he did go to jail. I didn't go to jail. I didn't go to court. He threatened me, because there was a time where he did go to jail before, and I woke up with him slapping me in my face. So he was bailed out. He got bailed out of jail, and no one told me, and he broke into my house. So I was like, do I go to court? Do I not go to court? If I go to court, he's going to catch me. If I don't go to court, he's going to catch me. I just felt so defeated back then. So that lasted until 23 years of age. I went to divorce him. I finally got the courage. I went to divorce him. He came to the court, begged the judge to not divorce us. So guess what I did? I took him back again. And then 3 months later, he hit me again. So I went back to the courthouse and I divorced him finally. Yeah. So that it starts a whole nother story, but that's the gist of that. And when I divorced him.
That was a lot. I want to ask you that you were a teenager when you met. And so I just want to pivot real quick. I want you to talk to either those teenagers that are watching or those adults who haven't even had this conversation and don't realize even how much more now it could be dangerous for their teens in abusive relationships.
Yes.
So what parent, what would you say? What should they look out for?
Pay attention to everything. And my mom has always asked me, but I didn't know, what did I miss? My mom worked 2, 3 jobs. It was 4 of us, 4 or 5. My brothers were gone away. Then I had another brother there, and she was working nights. She was working days. She was going to school. My mom was doing it all, and she wanted us. Well, we had to take care of ourselves pretty much. So I would say to parents, just pay attention, ask questions. You're going. If my mom was around more, and I'm not to blame her because she had to take care of her kids, but I'm sure she would have noticed the signs as far as me withdrawing and being quiet, or crying sometimes. And sometimes I would cry. I attempted suicide because I was so afraid. I didn't know what to do. And when I did attempt suicide, my mom, I had bad migraines back then, and my mom just thought I just overtook pills for my migraines. But I was really trying to leave the earth because I just didn't know what to do. You know what I mean? So I think for parents with young teenagers, and we talk about this at our teen summit, you gotta be all in their business. You have to talk to them. You have to ask questions, and not just how was school today. Like get in there and ask questions that will require an answer, more than a one word answer. But definitely get into their relationships and find out what's going on. Stay in touch with the teachers at school, because what you don't see, sometimes the teachers at school will see. You
So
know, when I talked to my kids when they were in high school about abuse, they would tell me about kids who are being abused at their school by their boyfriend or their girlfriend.
mhm.
It happens, and those kids are in school being abused, and they go home like nothing happened. We have to get it all up in our kids' business, ask questions. I know going on their phone, like people don't want to go on their phones, but sometimes you have to, because especially if they're not vocal or telling you what's going on.
That's really true. Well, what do you think about those who are looking at court processes? Either they want to follow a restraining order or they don't want to go to court. They're afraid that the person is going to come find them, because exactly what you said is exactly what happens. And
Yeah.
so what do we say to someone who's like, but I want to press charges, but I'm afraid of them? What would you say?
That is the hardest thing. That's the hardest thing, because I talk to people today that's like, I want to go press charges, but did you see that lady just got whatever, not too long ago? I don't know if I want to deal with that. I still encourage them to press charges, but you have to have a safety plan. Don't just press charges and get up and go to work the next day. Don't just press charges and go through life regularly. People need to know where you are, who you with, what time you're leaving, what time you're coming back. Make sure your location is on for people in your life. They can know where you are. Have a safe word. If you have to call someone and say something out of the way, like strawberry, pineapple, or something. So even a phrase. I had a young lady who would, like, she would call her friends and say, "Can you order me a pizza?" Something like that. Something random. Do they know I need you to call the police? Because sometimes you can't call the police where you are. So make sure you have that support system. And for those that don't have support systems, reach out to an advocate. The National Domestic Violence Hotline, call them. They will connect you to an advocate. But make sure somebody knows your every move at every time. And I know it's embarrassing. A lot of people don't want to tell their jobs what they're going through. But my abuser met me in the parking garage of my job. And had I told the security, had I told my job, my boss, whatever, they would have protected me. Because when I finally did tell them, they made sure I was safe. They would walk me to my car. They would meet me at my car. You know what I mean? We have to get out of being embarrassed and speak up so that people can support us and help us.
That's good. That's real good. I get excited about, she's an advocate too. So we have to stay down, know where you're going to go, have your thing, your plan in order, because I know people that say, "Oh, I'm leaving, but I have to go to work in the morning."
Yeah.
You can't go to work in the morning. We know
Right.
we're telling you that, and we know it's difficult. You may not have the job anymore, but you also may not have your life if you
Right.
go back on your normal routine of life. So when you started talking about, press charges or go through with the court, but have a safety plan in place.
Yes.
Someone just said a safety plan is critically important. You may not be able to go to that
Critically.
same job. The kids' school should know about it. The daycare should know about it.
Yes.
Like you said, embarrassment, listen, this is your life.
Yes.
Okay, we could be embarrassed later. Right now, we just need you to live. So, Dr. Roberts, you are exactly on point. What would you say to someone who may be experiencing this right now? One thing you talked about a lot was the physical abuse that you were experiencing. And what would you say to someone who's experiencing that, but they're like, "Well, this is my life now. This is my new normal."
It's not. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to be free. You deserve to be loved and treated like the queen you are. I thought that, and I'm able to run off everything you need to do. Guess what? I didn't do those things.
Yeah.
I did restrain over and right to work. And guess who's meeting me under the parking garage? You know what I mean? I know now I should have done this. I should have done that. When I finally left, I left on a good note. We were having a good day. We're in that honeymoon stage. It was, "Hey baby, I love you. Have a good day at work." Girl, I got out of there. I was packing clothes a week ahead of time. I was taking my clothes out every day. I would just put a little something in my bag. And I had a friend who had a place, and I asked her, "Could I move her?" She said, "Yes. When you're ready, just come on." She gave me a key. But I had to leave when it was safe. You can't say, "I want a divorce." You can't say, "I'm leaving you." You can't say, "Get out of my life." You can't say those things, because that's going to make them even more possessive over you and don't want to go. My abuser stopped going to work when I told him I was leaving him. He was like, "Okay, well, if you leaving, I'm going too. I'm not going to work." And he wouldn't go to work. He would watch me for days. So what I would tell a woman in the situation now is, again, make sure you have a safety plan. Tell someone, but get out. Don't worry about, and I know it's easier said than done. Don't worry about how I'm gonna pay my bills, how I'm gonna do this, because if you're in an obituary, it's too late. It's too late. Don't worry about being embarrassed. Worry about being in the obituary. Worry about your kids not having their mother. Worry about you having an illness for life. I have pseudotumor cerebri because my brain, he beat me so bad that I had knots on my head every other day. I cut my hair so he could stop pulling my hair, and he still found a way to hit me in my head. I have excessive fluid on my brain and will never go away. It's better, but it will never go away. And I suffer from motion headaches because I feel I just stayed too long. If I had us back then, I probably knew that I'm strong enough to leave. That I can do it, that there's resources, there's help out there. You know what I mean? So there's help. You're not alone. Reach out for help, reach out for support. There's women like us, organizations like us, and we got you. You don't deserve this. You don't have to stay in it.
That was so good. Yeah, her organization is Pain to Purpose 76.org on Facebook and website as well. But before I let you go, please tell us what your life is like now, because
I got me a man, child.
Tell us about it.
I have been married to a wonderful man. He's of 24 years now. We have a bunch of beautiful children. There, like I said, they're grown. Thank the Lord. And we have one more that's about to get out of here. He's 17, and we have 3 grandbabies and one more on the way. I am a founder of my nonprofit. I also run my own business. And I'm singing in church, worshiping, advocating, just doing what God has called me and saved me. That's the important part. Save me to do. So that's life right now. I'm trying to finish my book. I co-wrote a book with Miss Lisa. And I'm trying to finish my book that, is even after all these years, it's still hard to tap back into what happened and put those words on paper. But that's what I'm currently working on right now.
I love that. And really quickly, before you go, how does your faith intertwine into your story? I know you've been married for 24 years, going on 25 next year, which is incredible. But how did that play a part in your first marriage?
It didn't, because, well, it did. Let me take that back. But he tried to suppress it. So let me tell you one of the things that happened. I went to our first lady. As soon as I got married, because remember, he abused me before marriage. And he told me he'll stop if I married him, and it kept going on. So I went to her. I said, I need help. How do I leave him, or what do I do? What am I doing wrong? And she asked me, what am I doing wrong? I'm sorry. She told me, ask me what I'm doing wrong, and I have to stand by my man. She said, are you doing this? Are you doing this? You got to make sure this is going on. You got to make sure this is going on. Because if not, it must be your fault. And I knew then that I felt then, because it's not true. I don't want people to feel like you can't go to your church, because you definitely can. But I just had the wrong person at the time. But I felt then, being a young woman, that I couldn't go to anybody at church, because in my mind, maybe they're going through the same thing too. You know what I mean? And I know she wasn't, because I loved our pastor at the time, but that's what I felt like. And I had to tap into my faith, because my mom raised me in the church. I knew who God was. I knew exactly who God was. So I did what all I knew how to do, and that was pray. I knew to pray. I had to trust God. And I kept talking to God. God, you didn't put me in this situation, but how do I get out? And I had to just stop and listen and listen to his words and hear him to find the strength to get out. I had to first remember who I was, that I was a child of God, and I was strong enough to do it. But once I did, honey, you couldn't tell me nothing. Once I remember who I was, remember whose I was, that's all I needed.
I love that. Dr. Roberts, thank you so much. I remember hearing the Lord say, God loves you more than he hates divorce. And that was, that was it for me, because people will try to, that advice, like somebody just said, was really bad from the pastor's wife. It was really, really bad. And that's why it's so important, the work we do to train these clergy to say, hey, listen, you may not want the person to get divorced, but let's start with separation. Let's do something to get them to safety, because women are dying. Children are dying because someone had a bad day, or they want to be, abusive on that moment. So thank you so much for sharing your story. Please do not go far, because we want to bring you back in just a little bit. So we'll just in a few minutes. Okay. All right. Hi, Brandy.
Hi.
Welcome, social worker. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. How are you?
Fabulous. I'm so excited to chat with you. So please tell us a little bit about your story. You can pretty much start at wherever you feel is necessary. You have the floor.
Okay. I'll start with my abuser. I knew him in high school. He was my second husband. So after my divorce, we rekindled. I did not know when we were in teenagers, you're oblivious. So I didn't know any of his history. I didn't know that he was abusive towards girls or women. So we got married. Well, we started seeing each other, got married about 9 months later. So there were a few signs in the beginning. He started with his drinking habit. And sometimes when he would drink, abusive behaviors. And at the time, I say abusive behaviors now, but I'm going to tell you at the time, I didn't know it was called abuse. I just thought he was off the hinges. I didn't know. There would be nights he would rip all my clothes down out of the closet and throw all of them in the bathtub, toss me in the bathtub, just going belligerent over nothing. I didn't provoke him. I didn't do anything. But there would be nights he would chase me through the apartment and throw furniture at me and break doors and TVs and all of those things. And I still didn't know it was abuse. I just thought he was going through something. I didn't know it was abusive. Probably the first time I realized I was in something that I didn't quite know was the first time he strangled me. The first time in my life someone showed me that they could take my life was probably the most telling moment. Still didn't know it was abuse. I just knew that it wasn't right. But then I was in fear. So I stayed. So we went through this cycle of an abusive behavior, a honeymoon phase, the cycle of abuse. We went through the cycle numerous times. It wasn't the first black eye or, I still made excuses. He would come back and he would cry and I would hold him and I would think that he needs help, like mental health help, or maybe he was suffering from trauma. I was looking for every excuse in the book to justify his behavior, but he was making my life a living hell. So, all that says, while he has 2 kids, I have 2 kids, and I don't know what all these kids saw, but there was many nights that you could hear him throwing me across the room, me screaming bloody murder. And it could be over anything. I could look crooked. He could think I'm raising my voice. He could think I'm taking it for myself. Whatever it was, he would find a reason. I realized it was abuse when I went to work and I asked one of my coworkers. He had started a habit of staying out all night. And I asked my coworker, I said, is it weird that I never set my house alarm except when he's gone at night? Because I want to know when he comes home. Wow. I'm not in fear of the strangers that are outside. I'm in fear of my own husband. And she said, that's not good. So that's when I knew. I was like, this is not okay. Now, when he had isolated me from my family and friends, it was very classic. I was surrounded by his abusive family as a whole dynamic. So the second time he blacked my eye, I remembered him like immediately getting away from me. He normally did this whole victim reverse role thing. I'm so sorry, it's me. I'm sorry that I hit you, because no, he didn't hit me. He tapped me, by the way, because that's what he said. He tapped me. He never hit me. But he would be so profusely sorry because there was just something wrong with him. There was nothing. It's not my fault. He would never do it again. He can't believe he did it already. But I knew that I was starting to think about leaving when I went to the gas station, and I hadn't talked to my mother in a while. And the first person I called was my mother to tell her that he gave me a black eye. That was a big deal.
It's huge.
Admitting that to my mother. Sorry. No. It's a little emotional.
You're good.
But so that's when I think I started thinking about leaving. I just didn't know quite how I was going to make that happen, because my parents did live in Florida, or they do live in Florida, and I was in Georgia. So that's a good 500-600 miles away. So I wasn't thinking about like leaving my job and moving my kids' school and all that stuff. I hadn't thought about that yet. I was just thinking, I wonder how one day I could get away from him, but I just didn't know how yet. The night that it really turned for the worst was he held me at gunpoint. He accused me of talking to a man that I wasn't talking to. And he held me at gunpoint, held me against my will for about an hour and a half. And when I was able to escape, I couldn't justify that behavior. I justified the black eyes. I justified the strangulation. I justified the screaming and the name calling. But taking like one trigger away from taking my life, I couldn't justify that behavior. I didn't do anything to deserve that. So it was a couple weeks, and after he got out of jail, bailed out of jail, and of course we went right back together because he brought me flowers, and this was just all a big misunderstanding and all of this, but my wheels were turning. I was ready. I had already sent my children to Florida, so I knew I wasn't far behind. I just had to figure out how. So started thinking and contemplating. We were in a good place, me and the abuser. So I was just like, I have to get back to my daughter. I have to get back to my kids, and I'll come back. Let me go to Florida. Let me get them through school, and then we'll come back. It's not a big deal. I won't be gone that long. And he was like, I know you miss your kids. So he agreed to it. So that was my chance. Now, I will say that the day I left him, that was one of the hardest things I had ever done up to that time. That was hard. It wasn't easy. Just because I wanted to leave him because he scared me doesn't mean I didn't love him. And also that it wasn't painful, because it was. But I knew that something didn't sit with me right. I knew like something was life or death. I just knew I had to get out. So I did. I was successful. I left. I drove to Florida. And then once I realized he no longer had a hold of me psychologically, because that's where the hold was, he called me, because he called me every night, even though he wasn't supposed to. But he called me, and that night I stood up for myself and I said, I want a divorce. And then he turned around and FaceTimed me, and then proceeded to go outside and die by suicide. So my divorce I didn't get a divorce. I got another level of trauma from him. So, but that was my ending, right? As far as physical, that was my physical ending. The battle had just begun. My mental health battle had just begun because of that abuser. I never had a mental health diagnosis my whole life. Never, suffered from any types of mental health diagnoses until him. So I was diagnosed with chronic PTSD, which comes with a slew of its own problems and things that I had to get through. I will say I have done that. I have healed. I'm still healing, but the majority. I don't have flashbacks anymore. I don't have night terrors anymore. I don't mourn him anymore. I'm relieved that I can be free. So there's my story. It's a dramatic one, but
I'm like, speechless. First of all, there's a lot to unpack, but because I know you and I've known you for so long, I want to celebrate the fact that you don't have these terrors, that you don't have those things that traumatize you for so long. And I watched you go through that process. You know what I mean? And I'm just so incredibly proud of you and so proud of how far you've come. And so as heavy as this story is, and we're going to go back and kind of chop it up a little bit. Thank you for sharing it. I know that it wasn't easy, but I'm grateful. And I'm just so, so proud because one of the things you talk about was like, it wasn't until an actual gun was to your head that you realized that you had to get out of there. But before that, you had been experiencing so much physical abuse, a lot of psychological abuse, but it didn't click for you. What do you think is missing for people in that moment? What do you think is the disconnect for so many women with that?
I know for me, I didn't really have any exposure or education to domestic violence. I didn't know the word gaslighting or manipulation or any of those things. So I think some exposure, I wish I would have had some exposure to some information beforehand. I think maybe that's one reason it didn't click. Also, I was isolated. So I didn't have like my family to say, hey, that's not right. I didn't have any friends near me. So I think that was part of it too.
So how do you feel? I know you talked about your mental health diagnosis and things like that. And you talked about that's kind of what he left you. Like he was intentional. Oftentimes you'll hear, if I can ask you, oh, well, if you leave me, I'm going to hurt myself. Or if you leave me, I'm going to do this to myself. And that is, something I even heard. And so when I hear survivors say that puts a heavy burden on the survivor to stay because of A, B, C, or D. If someone is being told that, don't leave me. If you leave me, I'm going to do this. If you leave me, I'm going to hurt myself. What would you say to them? Because I think it's really important.
I would say do it anyways. If they hurt themselves, if they die by suicide, that's their choice. You didn't do it. So do it anyways.
So many women stay for that phrase alone. And then, so hopefully, we put that out there. So whoever's dealing with that, because we'll just put it there. Brandy, your story is pretty heavy. It has a lot to it. When you look at your healing process and the way that you've gone through your healing, what would you say that looked like for you?
It was messy. It was very messy. Healing definitely isn't linear, right? It's definitely a journey. I did a lot of therapy. So a lot of therapy, years of therapy, still in therapy. But I was very fortunate to have my family who helped me search alternative methods. So I'll just mention these few things just in case someone can get help with them. But ketamine therapy was helpful for me. There's an injection called SGB. That injection was 100% effective for me with my hypervigilance. So if anybody's curious about that, just Google that. It'll come right up. So that was beneficial. And just having community, like finding Stand Up Survivor, finding you, such a huge part that put me back together.
Love you, dear. Thank you for that. That was sweet. Brandy came to one of our retreats and she's incredible. She ended up coming back and interning at Stand Up Survivor. She went back for her master's degree, came back and worked with survivors of domestic violence and helped them. And so I just love to full circle. I am so incredibly proud of you. Thank you for sharing your story. If you
Absolutely.
had anything to say to anyone who's listening right now before I switch you out, someone is asking SG. What was the shot? Is it?
Oh, SGB.
SGB. It's SGB.
And it's a long word. I'm not even going to try to say what it stands for.
So look up.
Okay.
You have to do EMDR or anything like that.
I did EMDR. Yes, I did my trauma. I had a trauma therapist who specifically did trauma therapy, which one specific trauma therapy was EMDR. It was effective for me. And I guess one thing I would say to someone who is thinking about it or rolling around the idea is to trust that gut. If it feels wrong, it's wrong.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Brandy, thank you so much. I'll see you in a little bit, okay? And if you guys have any questions or anything, please go ahead and put it in the chat and we'll try to get to them when we bring everybody else on. And I'm bringing on our fourth guest right now. Loriana, how are you?
I am good. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. You have the floor, the microphone.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm listening to all these stories. I'm like, how are they cramming all this time into these little? I don't know that I have ever crammed my story into such a small amount. So this is a challenge tonight. been trying to contemplate, how do I even begin? And I would, we had a very brief courting before we met. I married a stranger. I'll just say that. I married a complete stranger. I met someone, I was on the rebound emotionally from a previous relationship. And I met this person. I was out of town. I was 3 hours from home. I had moved out of town. So I was I was basically brand new in this city, in a new state, 3 hours from home. Met this person, and within 2 weeks of meeting him, we were dating. 2 months after that, we were engaged. And 5 months after that, we were married. And that in and of itself, in hindsight, was a huge, I say, is a red flag. It's not always, but it is something to pay attention to, is what I tell people, is it at least something to pay attention to. So while we were dating, he started becoming very controlling, but I didn't know that that's what was happening. I was enamored with the attention that he was giving me. He always wanted to be together. And I just didn't pick up on things. So the abuse started early, the coercion, the control, which I am calling abuse, because it was the beginning stages of what would become something so much bigger. And so it did not look like abuse at all in the beginning. It looked like somebody who just was, I'm just going to say, stupid. Like, just in hindsight, it just looked like very immature and ignorant behaviors that tied into things that would become so much bigger later on. Insisting that he take me to work. And so when I didn't live with him, so he would come pick me up. I had a car. I could drive to work, and I didn't even live that far from work. And he would come and pick me up and drop me off. I thought that was sweet. I thought it was endearing. But when he started making me late, and I eventually lost my job because he would not only make me late, but he would show up to work, and he would linger and loiter and everything. That happened actually later on when we were married. That happened later too. Being very much in control of where I was, who I went with. When we first met, I had a trip that was already planned prior to even meeting him, to go see my best friend up in Virginia. And again, he was a complete stranger. And but we were dating at this point. So he was a stranger, but we had started dating, and he wanted to go with me. He wanted to make sure that I was safe, wanted to make sure that I was in. There was a nor'easter that was coming in to weather wise, and it was going to be in that area, and he just wanted to make sure that I was safe. And my mom thought it was going to be a good idea that somebody would be with me. It would be a man. We'd be on a truck, on a bigger vehicle. And she was like, yeah, sure, go. I think it would be great. But what ended up happening is there was some sexual interaction on that trip that, again, I wasn't ready for. I didn't know him. And I was in a very vulnerable place emotionally. So my guard was down. I just didn't understand, and I didn't I just didn't really know how to say no. I had things happen in the past, and I didn't know how to say no. And so I went with it, and again, that was like right out the gate. And it was painted and it was packaged in a very pretty box, so it didn't seem like abuse, or didn't seem like red flags the way that we would think a red flag would look like. So that was just kind of how it started. Then we during the wedding planning phase was very difficult. I wasn't allowed to have anybody. I wasn't allowed to have the photographer take pre-wedding pictures of like me getting ready and, getting my hair done or anything pre-wedding that I'm glad I got it when I got remarried. I'm glad I have those, photos with my new husband. But at the time that was a big deal, and people saw that. People in our circle around, my family members, were like, "This is really weird. So I actually went into the wedding with cold feet and really questioning, should I say I do? And but I thought that was normal. I thought that it was normal to feel that. I thought it was just pre-wedding angst, and I was about to change my life. And what ended up happening is when we went through it all, got married, and on the honeymoon, the sexual abuse began right away. And I'm just going to say out the gate, my abuser never hit me, never pushed me, never threw anything at my body. There was no standard of physical abuse as what the other ladies were saying and what most people think is physical abuse. There was none of that in my marriage. But I was physically abused. I was physically abused in the bedroom for 10 years. We were married for 10 years. I'm about to celebrate my 9-year freedomversary, is what I call it. But for 10 years, I was abused in the bedroom. And what I am now understanding throughout in these last 9 years is that the emotional, psychological, sexual, spiritual, financial, all the other types of abuse is still physical because it attacks your nervous system, and your nervous system is with you for the rest of your life. And it's a lot harder to heal than a bruise or a broken bone. And I am still, I work with healing nervous systems now, and I'm still healing my nervous system 9 years later. But so some of the things that would happen is, he would cut me off from my family and my friends. I remember one time there was a incident with the wedding photographer, and he was going to take, he took some family photos for Mother's Day for my mom. And we were all there. It was me, my brother and his family, and my abuser, my ex. And for some reason, he thought that this photographer had some interest in me. And this man could easily be my dad, like an age gap. He thought that he had taken an interest in me and was looking at my body, and that he was behaving or dressed, or I don't know where he got it from, but what he said was he popped his collar because he knew that you were going to come. He was dressing young because he knew that you were coming. He was looking at your butt, and you shouldn't have worn those pants. They were too tight, and da 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 da. So we left. Like a few days later, he brought this to me and told me that that's how he felt. And he made me sit down, and he dictated an email to this photographer that was supposed to sound like it was me saying these things, of how offended I was and how I was so disrespected, and I couldn't believe that he had looked at me that way and thought of me. And I had to say all these things. And while I did resist, I tried not to. We got in a fight over it. The way that the fights would happen, because he wasn't hitting me, it was all mind games. It was all in my head, and he would twist things around, and the gaslighting, somehow he had a way of twisting my brain and confusing me so intensely that I would cave. And I didn't think there was any. They would go on and they would go on and they go on. So the only way to get out of these arguments, because it would go for hours and hours and hours, if I didn't cave, it wouldn't stop, and it would continue into the next day. So it would keep going. So I would have to cave to make him just stop. And if I didn't listen to him, if I didn't do what he wanted me to do, then that was a new argument, is that now you're disrespecting me. Now you're not honoring your husband, which leads me, well, sorry, I have ADHD, so
You're good. You're good.
I chase squirrels. That incident ended up that the photographer had returned the check to my mom for the pictures, which opened up a door of my mom had actually called me and like, what is this? What's going on? He heard me on the phone with her and came in there yelling and screaming. This was the first violent encounter. This is when the first violence started. And he came in there yelling and screaming and get off the phone. He ripped the phone out of my hand, threw it across the room. Of course, my mom is now thinking, oh my God, she's being beaten. Once again, he never laid a hand on me. But that turned into a whole thing. The next day she emailed me and he came in and saw the email over my shoulder. And from that point on, he started a conversation with my dad and was like, she's not your responsibility. And he cut me off from my parents. He cut me off from my friends. I wasn't allowed to go see them. I wasn't allowed to do things with them. I wasn't allowed to travel by myself. So all we had was our church at that point, which that's where I was about to go next. The church and the spiritual abuse is what held me there for so long. Once I said I do, I believed it was written in eternity and there was no turning back. And because of the way that scriptures were twisted and the Bible was used against me, because he knew that my faith was the most important thing to me. And if I didn't listen to him, if I didn't obey him, if I didn't submit in this way, submit meant grovel. Submit to him meant do as I say. I'm your God, essentially. He would never admit that, but that was just like Iris was saying, her abuser never said you can't wear pink, but she learned she couldn't wear pink. It's the same thing. I learned that I was to treat him like he was Jesus, like he was God, and I had to bend the knee and do what he said or else. And remember, there was abuse in the bedroom. So that was usually my consequence. The way that the Bible was used against me, I believed with every fiber of my being that if I were to try to leave, although I didn't want to at first, or I didn't think that was an option, but I also believed that divorce was not an option. So this was it. This was my life. And the way that I processed that and came to grips with it was, this is my calling. I was created to be his servant. I was created to love him and serve him because nobody else would. So I'm the one that has to do it. And that's how I lived for the rest of the 10 years. And, like I said, it's hard. It's really hard to condense this down because, the abuse was not obvious. We had a pretty little life, pretty little family. We went to church, every Sunday. We were engaged in all the church functions, and he had a business, and I worked for him in the business. I did leave at one point because there were some girls my age that were my friends that came to me about 3 years in, and they said because I would say I'm not allowed to do that. They started picking up on some of my language, and they would say, hey, can you do this? Okay, let's go do that. And I'm like, well, I have to ask so-and-so, and then he would say no. And I would say, well, I'm not allowed to. Or they would say, let's ride to, this city and do this thing. And I'm like, oh, I can't do that. I'm not allowed to. So they were like, okay, there's a problem. So they came to me and encouraged me to separate. One of the ladies that was older got involved, so the church got involved. I went and I stayed with the associate pastor for a while, for it was like a couple weeks. But the intention was always to come back. It was never to divorce. It was always to heal the relationship. And we had some counseling through with the pastor at the time. And it just got worse. The idea was from the other elders and the women in the church, it was submit more, be the godly wife, and he'll learn, and you can fix, basically saying without saying, you can fix him. That's kind of what they were saying through this mentality, was the more you lay down, the more you submit, the more you meet his needs before he has to ask for them, the better it'll be for you. I actually was told, go ahead and give him sex before he asks for it, because then that'll be better for you. Like, that was actually a sentence that was said to me. And so, yeah, all that did was make it worse. It just made it worse. The more I submitted, the more he saw that he could have that much more control. And, the violence, back to that thing. That's the first time he punched a wall. So, he would punch walls, and not often, but every now and then he would punch a wall, or he'd kick a wall, or he would throw something. And so it was very few and far between that actually happened. So I did not know that this was abuse. In fact, I did go to counseling, and the first time I wanted to go to counseling, he told me no, I couldn't do it. But I insisted. I was like, I have had counseling basically my whole life. I had some things happen before, and I needed counseling. I was like, counseling is important to me. I need it. So I did go and made an appointment, got counseling, and he followed me there. And when he came in, his face was so red, and his veins were bulging. And the counselor that I saw, or that, she came to the door, and she saw him, and she yanked me behind the door where, like, into the hallway from the waiting room door. She pulled me back, and she was so scared. I had no idea why she was scared. I genuinely had no idea. I didn't understand. I knew that I was mad that he was there, and I had seen that face before, but I didn't understand why she was so scared for me. And she was implying that I was being abused. And I was like, what? Like, it wasn't clicking. And so later on, I didn't see her again, but I saw another one later. And after years of seeing her, she eventually one day said, Lorena, this is abuse. You've got to leave. And you know what I did? I never went back to her, because she hadn't heard his side of the story. And I was like, how can you call this abuse if you've never even heard his side of the story? Because what I was doing was I was always blaming myself because he did. I was always trying to justify everything that he did, because look, the Bible says this. Look, the Bible says this. But it's not what the Bible was saying. It was what I was being told the Bible was saying. Mm-hmm. And so everything was taken out of context, and it was presented in a way that fit his agenda. And even I could sit there and read it myself, but I would read it with his context. And so I was essentially brainwashed to read the Bible with a certain lens, that this lens that he is my authority and that I answer to him. And and then he answers to God. So everything that he says must be right, because he was always praying. He was always, so that's why I didn't leave, because I didn't think I could. And I thought that I would go straight to hell. I thought that I would be damned. I would be damned for all eternity if I left. If I left, I would go to hell, and there was no going back, because I would forever be in sin after the divorce, and there was no changing it. And that's, of course, I could go on, that I wrote a whole book.
Write a book, and the link is going to be up here. So really quickly, how did you end up leaving? Like, how did you end up leaving?
So I had been praying and praying and praying, and there was something that it's too much for me to go into what made me decide that I wanted to, for sure. I think it was because somebody said, look, your children are seeing this and they're going to think that this is normal. They're going to think that this is what love is and that this is what marriage is. I was nothing. I was a shell. I was a zombie. I was a complete zombie. And I wasn't even there for my kids. I couldn't laugh. And so something happened, and I was like, I need to get to Sumter. Sorry, well, that's where I'm from. I need to get home. And he wanted to follow me, he wanted to take me, and because he couldn't go, he didn't want me to go, but it was urgent. And so I started praying, and one day I was driving home from the grocery store, and I just was like, God, I will stay if I have to, but please let me go. And I have said that so many times, and I cannot say it without crying. Like, still to this day, I cannot say that without crying, because it was so real. Because in that moment, a veil was lifted, and it's like everything changed. My vision was completely different. Even the house that I was looking at, suddenly it's like my vision became clear. It was very physical veil lifting. And I heard go. And when I say here, my inner ear, inside I felt and I heard go. And that was it. And I called the domestic violence hotline because I had accepted that I was being abused. And I actually had gotten online and found a checklist of what domestic violence is from the domestic violence hotline. And everything checked except for being beaten and punched and, kicked and strangled and all those. And I started the process. I called them and I got in touch with a lawyer who kind of gave me some guidance. And at that point, it actually is a little bit of a blur at this point. But that's how I got out. I wrote him a little note, and I said, I'm leaving. The kids are with me. I can't take the abuse anymore. And while he was out of town, I picked the kids up from school, and we went to a hotel, and I got my support system back, and I rallied my family. I did have an attorney that was helping me, and I followed instructions because I had no idea what to do. I followed instructions, and the rest is, again, it's in here. You think you know, but you have no idea.
All right. And the story of marital rape and domestic abuse in a Christian marriage is the title of her book.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and bring everybody else on, Loriana. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm going to see if you guys have any questions or anything that you would like to share or ask anybody, please do. I just love the different dynamic of everybody's different story. If anybody has anything, go ahead. Feel free to share from anything you have. Dr. Iris, I feel like you have something to say. No? Do you?
Well, I will say, I would like to talk about a topic that people sometimes get a little upset about in regards to these situations. But I will say, I'm grateful to God that I was able to forgive my abuser before he died. And here's why. For me, I knew I would never get closure from him. And even before he died, he didn't make the deathbed confession that you hear about. That did not happen. But my heart and my soul and everything about me is free because I was able to forgive him and see him as a human in need of redemption, in need of saving himself, and somebody who probably had been hurt. And no, me forgiving him does not take away what he did to me. But the forgiveness was for me. It was for me so that I could be free, so that I could continue to live my life. And today, as I told you all earlier, I am happily married. I was able to find love again. And had I kept the venom and all of that pain and all the things that were done to me inside of my heart, I don't believe I'd have been able to open my heart for my husband. So I am someone who, I do believe in that power of forgiveness, and everybody has to do that on their own personal terms. But I did want to share that.
That's really good. I think that's so perfect because a lot of people don't want to talk about forgiveness, but I'm glad that you did in the way that you did. So thank you. That's going to resonate with a lot of people. Thank you. And so somebody wanted to say something else. You guys have the floor.
I kind of want to say something.
Yes, Brent.
If that's okay. My story was, it's a lot. And I didn't get to share how I'm doing now.
I know. I thought about that. I was like, I didn't even get to ask Brittany how she's doing now. And Marietta, you didn't get to finish. Okay, y'all take it. Tell us.
I'm doing wonderful, and I'm going to tell you why. It's the small things, right? So I can dance and sing again. I can do anything. I can dye my hair. I can wear whatever clothes I can wear. I can call him all kinds of bad names, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I just want people to know what's important to me is that I can just tell you what I've been through and what my mental health battle was. I just want, if you're going through the same thing, if you're experiencing the same type of symptoms with the same type of story or what have you, I just want you to know that it's possible to go on the healing journey. It's possible to feel better. The symptoms, they get better. Like life just gets better. It really does. So there is a better side. I know when you're in the situation and it's happening, you can't see anything. There's no future. But when you're out of it and when you have done a lot of healing and a lot of growth, there's nothing but possibilities.
Thank you.
I just want to congratulate all of you all ladies, but Brandy, I love your story. You getting assistance or support from Lisa and then coming back and doing the work. I think that's one of the best survival stories because that's what we promote. We promote going, get to where you need to get to, heal, and reaching back and pulling someone else up. So I apply both of you, Lisa. I'm not gonna cry with y'all tonight.
I'm not gonna cry. So we can cry.
I applaud y'all for that because I think as an advocate, that just makes us feel like what we're doing is working. Someone's getting it. Someone's breaking free. Whenever I have a survivor call and tell me that they've moved forward and they've gotten out and they're free and they're safe, all the work is, feels so much more important. So Brandy, I just really want to applaud you for doing that, and whoever else got assistance from an advocate and went back and reach back and help someone else. That is amazing. We all are doing amazing work. So I'm just proud of it, all of us.
What I was going to say is one thing that has stuck with me is the one of the first levels of healing for me was self-love and learning that you are the only person that is guaranteed to be with you until your last breath. And the love that, when you're in an abusive relationship and you're staying, you're pouring out all this love, thinking that it's going to change this person, and you're giving all this love to someone else, and we abandon ourselves. We've got to give ourselves that love that we keep giving to someone else, that we wish someone else would give us. We tend to walk away with a toxic relationship with ourselves, and so that has to be healed in order. And Iris, I think you actually had touched on that. Is we have to heal that relationship with ourselves to be able to heal properly and to love properly and understand and know, hey, I'm not going to take that because, you know, me myself and I, we're not going there again. We're not doing that. Like,
Yeah.
it's not allowed. So that relationship with yourself is exceedingly important. It is the first, for me, was the first step is accepting that self-love and showing it to myself. In terms of where I'm at now, I actually met my high school sweetheart, met up with my high school sweetheart, and we remarried, or we got married. And it is the most phenomenal relationship. Like, it is a fairy tale. It has been a fairy tale since day one. And my kids are just, they're thriving. And the business that I have, is, again, I'm focusing on chronic stress relief, because I walked away from that marriage with CPTSD, complex PTSD. And again, he never hit me. And it's the nervous system that gets so racked through all of this. And so I am focusing on helping people connect with their bodies and pull that somatic, that mind, body, and the spirit back into alignment, because that's so important. When we go through these toxic relationships, we get fragmented, and so we've got to pull all that
Yeah.
back together.
I wish I had you all. And who was that talking about EMDR? Because, well, nobody knows. Lisa knows I am petrified. I don't like to fly. I don't like airplanes, but I fly all the time. So go figure. I have a son that plays football, so I'm always on somebody's airplane, but I don't enjoy it.
We're not
And
going
I
to say what he
remember
plays football for. Sorry, we're just not going to shout him out.
my son plays for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mr. Elijah Roberts. He is an NFL player, so I'm so excited for him. So excited for him. But he's been playing football since I can remember. And in college, I had to fly a lot. And I used to call Lisa, girl, I almost died on that plane. I hated flying. But I said it to say someone on the plane recommended EMDR to me. And I think I looked into it but didn't. So I would love to talk to y'all offline or, later on about that. How was the experience? Because I don't know what it is, but I want to have a pleasant flying experience. I have to fly again next month. You know what I mean? So I don't like the stress that I endure. But back to our nervous system. I did not have you ladies and this information when I was going through what I went through, because coming out of that abusive relationship, we leave physically, but we don't leave it emotionally. And baby, I took everything that I had learned with me to the next relationship. And the title of my book and my chapter in the book that Lisa and I co-wrote is I Would Have Left Me, because I was mean, I was hurt. Baby, I wish that somebody would a moment. That's where I was. I lost friends, I lost jobs. My resume during that time frame had about a job every other month, because if somebody said something to me, I was going off because I had built this wall up that nobody could climb over, because I refused to be anybody's victim again. And it didn't matter who you were. And it took me a long time to realize that everyone's not against me, that I don't have to be on the defense all of the time. I chose to be offended. I chose to be upset. Because I didn't know, I didn't have this information to go get help. That Shonda, you need help. You need to go see about yourself, because something's not right. Now, like I said, in our culture and back then, therapy was taboo, so we didn't do it. I thank God I tapped into my faith. I thank God that I found a man who, well, he found me, because he who finds a wife, but he found me and was able to love me through that pain and love me through that hurt and talk to me and encourage me. But I do advise victims and survivors to go get help, get therapy, get your nervous system regulated again. Yes, we have faith and we love the Lord, but the Lord also gave us doctors that have wisdom and therapists who have wisdom to help us through those processes, because I probably would have been healed a lot longer. I mean, I'm sorry, a lot sooner had I done that, because I had bad dreams. I woke up middle of the night fighting and screaming. And especially when I started talking about the abuse again, everything built right back up. So I do always advise anyone dealing with trauma or have dealt with trauma to go get help. I don't know from everybody else, but I had PTSD as well, and
Mhm.
I had triggers, and I still do, but I know how to deal with them now. I know when I am going to get triggered, but I did not have this information when I was going through. So I hope that anybody hears us, have been through it. If you're out of it still, I would recommend go get some type of therapy.
I think that was so good. I think what you talked about, how we leave, but we still carry what happened to us with us out of the abuse into the healing.
Yeah.
And that's what the healing process, it is ongoing. I don't know. I've been out, I feel like 15
Still.
now, and it's still something that, my body, if I see a fight happening down the street, my body like what's happening? It's not even my business. It's not my fight.
Mhm.
For some reason, it still affects the body. So healing is a process. It's a journey. And I
Yeah.
love that you guys are really talking about the PTSD, the CPTSD, the body experiencing and needing to find a way to relieve and process that pain. I have a question that the abuser checks their phone, physically assaults them whenever they think they're talking to someone else, but they reported it to the church, and the church is advising to stay for the children, saying that God hates divorce. And so again, I will say God hates divorce, but he definitely created the woman or the person that's experiencing it and loves her. He did not create her to be abused. And so it's very important that the churches are educated on what it looks like to save marriages and not to force people to stay together, because so many women have died at the hand of their abuser because the church has told them to stay. Go, Loriana, jump in.
One of the things that I actually wanted to say tonight was too many women, the first time that he laid a hand on her was the last time he ever got to, because she wasn't around for anymore. And do not wait for physical abuse. And this ideology that you have to stay that's how people die. That is how people die, is forcing them to stay. And I wish I had a megaphone.
A megaphone, like a huge one. Hopefully this megaphone is working tonight. Randy, I feel like you have something to say, but I wanted to add that it's really important. I know staying for the children, that's the whole thing. Oh, I want them to be raised in a 2-parent household. Oh, I don't want them to experience divorce. But if you're not here, they're not going to be raised in a 2-parent household, and they won't have you as their mother. And oftentimes we may be physically there, but emotionally and psychologically, we're still not there to be able to take care of and raise these children, and they need us.
And what are they learning by staying?
Exactly.
We're teaching them how to be in relationships.
Exactly. I think it was Brandy. I think you said like you were being thrown into the shower, and the kids were around, and you don't even really know what they heard and what they saw, but they could hear. Kids experience it. And I don't know if you wanted to say something, Brandy.
No. I'm good.
Okay. Someone I want to honor Lisa, who lost her daughter, Maconia Johnson, to domestic violence in 2020. And she's raising her 2 beautiful daughters. We are sorry for your loss. We don't, that's a really heavy thing for us, but because we know, and so we just want to say her name and honor her today. We're sorry for your loss. We're glad that her 2 daughters have you. So anybody else before we go? I will touch on the fact that, and I think Loriana kind of touched it, they don't have to put a finger on you for it to be abuse. You don't even have to wait for it to get to physical abuse for it to be abuse. If they put their mouth on you, their voice on you, their words on you, they demean you, they call you out your name, that is not okay. And that is abuse. We're not going to minimize it in any way, shape, or form. I know women who have lost limbs or legs, or they're blind as a result of the physical abuse that their abuser has done to them. I know women who have been admitted into hospitals psychologically from losing their mind as a result of this abuse, and the abuser never put one finger on that. So on this live tonight, we're not going to say just because they never physically hurt you that you are not in an abusive relationship. We want to make that specific. Clear. Loriana, real quick, I know that most of your abuse was sexual abuse in the bedroom, but because people can't see that, they don't know what's going on. Did they still believe that you were being abused?
Does who still believe that I was?
Did they believe when you told people? Did they believe that you were still being abused, even though there were no bruises to show or anything like that?
No, I've gotten a lot of "you can't rape your wife." That's not real. I've gotten a lot of
lie.
And I actually had a question asked of me, just like, what do you mean marital rape? That what does that even mean? Like, you can't, that's not a thing. And there's been a lot of question, like, really, like, so it has been doubted a lot. So that's a hard one to, it's a hard one to, because you can't prove it.
Can't prove it.
Mhm.
But
You can't prove
marital
it.
rape is rape. Just because they're your partner, your wife, or your husband, you do not have a right to do any and everything to them. Marital rape is still rape. You shouldn't be forcing the partner, whether you're married or not, to have sex with you. It's a crime. It's wrong. And although many states don't consider it to be rape, it is abuse and it is rape. Period. We said it. We said it. Anybody can argue it, and it really doesn't matter because there's so many women that are going through sexual abuse behind closed doors and feel that they have to do things because the person is categorized as their husband. And so we're going to nip that in the bud.
And the church has a lot to do with, not the church, but the church that I was at and other churches.
They keep perpetuating the same lie that they own your body and they should be able to do whatever they want to you.
In fact, the person who that post that kind of started this conversation, she also posted something else about that, about the authority of the body and the thing is,
that body was never meant to be used for abuse. You know, the body belongs to the partner. That wasn't meant to be used for abuse, but they're now using it to be abusive to their partner. So does anybody have anything else that they would like to share or say or encourage someone who's listening today? I'm going to give you guys each time to say something.
Well, I just want to tell people, tell anyone listening, whether they're in an abusive relationship, if they're currently in it and they're watching us and wondering if there's life after abuse, there is. We're here. We're proof. We are here to show you that it can happen, that you deserve to be free, you deserve to be healthy, you deserve to be whole, and your children deserve to see you happy and whole. Staying in the abusive relationship because you have kids you're either raising an abuser or you're raising a victim. And you don't want to have either. So the safest thing and the best thing to do is to get out. And as we said before, you're not alone. Get support, find community, get help. But staying is not an option. But have a plan. Don't just make a move, make a safe move.
I have one last thing to say. Nobody has to believe you for it to be true.
Yes.
Right.
Even if people don't believe you, your truth is still your truth. And you don't have to have everyone believe you for something to be true.
That's good. And validate your experience. You don't need them to validate. You were there. They weren't there. And you know, if you're waiting for someone to validate your experience, you'll be waiting forever. And Lorian, I don't know if you can see the comment box, but someone just thanked you in the comment box. What about you, Brandy? If you had anything you wanted to share?
If anything I want to share that, you know, if you're in it and you can't see a way out, just reach out for any type of help you can get. Here's something else I'll say. When people started recognizing I was in an abusive relationship, asking me small questions like at work and things like that, you could tell, because once you come in with a second black eye, you know, the stories just don't really make any sense anymore. But what I wish is someone would have gave me little nuggets of information. So here's a domestic violence hotline. Here's a website. Here's something. So that's what I would tell people if you're not in it. If you're somebody who sees it or knows about it, I would offer information. I wouldn't offer judgment, and I wouldn't offer help. I would just offer information.
That's really, really good. And then they can look up the information time when they're ready.
That's right. Yeah. And I'm a mental health therapist, so in Florida. So
Brandy, she is. And she's wonderful. As a survivor, I always say that we have a unique ability to sit with survivors because we are survivors. You don't have to because we get it. You know, you don't even have to say a word sometimes. We get it. And Brandy's incredible. She has helped tons of survivors through Stand Up Survivor, and we're grateful for her. So definitely contact her if you have that need. And we all need a therapist. Get a therapist. It's good for you.
Amen.
Talk to Iris. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I have two things. It's not too late for you. I don't care how long you've been there. You can begin again. So that's the first thing. And then if you do decide to leave, just because it feels bad or it hurts or it makes you cry when you leave, it doesn't mean you've made the wrong decision.
That's so good. Yeah. Sometimes you have to cry through it. Cry up the mountain, but just keep crying. Don't stop.
Mhm.
Thank you for putting that in there. We have a question. How do you navigate the different perceptions people create when you speak your truth? The bitter ex-wife not over it. How do you navigate the different perceptions people create when you speak your truth? Anybody?
Don't.
I'm right. You don't.
Mhm.
No one has to
I don't
believe
care
you.
what someone's perception is of me. I know what I lived through.
Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And that one is a really hard, because when you're in a place where that means something to you, it is hard to step out of that and just let it go. So there's a lot of inner work that has to be done, that self-love and learning how to let go of that perception. So it's one thing to say, yeah, just don't, and I agree with you 100%. And there's you have to kind of step outside of it and realize, again, like I said, for
Right.
something to be, their belief in what you've said doesn't change what actually happened. Just to kind of reiterate what you just said, like, you were there, we were there, we know what happened. But it is a challenge to step outside of that perception, and it takes some work.
Yeah.
um, and you just have to recognize and acknowledge the fact that your truth is your truth is your truth, regardless of what they want to make it or say about you, or call you or label you. It does not change what actually happened. Just to kind
Right.
of
We
paraphrase
have
what y'all
court
said.
records. We have things still in the court system, and my abuser said he didn't abuse me.
Hmm.
Um, I've stopped trying to defend what happened because he knows, I know, the police know, the court knows what happened. So when even when we first not when we first, like years ago, when I left him and he started dating other people, it was a lie. Oh, he didn't do nothing to her. She just lying. Okay. And then it happened to her 10 years later. And guess what? She
Mhm.
messaged me. And guess what I did? I prayed with her and I cried with her
Mhm.
because at the time when she was, I was, oh, you're the enemy. He didn't do this to you. And you just, baby, okay, I'm just hoping you're safe. And 10 years later, she reached out to me and I prayed with her and I cried with her. And, I stayed in touch with her for a good little while. So you don't have to, and yes, Loriana, you have to get to a place where what people's perception of you doesn't matter. And I think because I just turned 50, I could care less. I have more days. I have more days behind me than ahead of me, and I'm not living to please or prove anything to anyone. Do I want my family proud of me? Yes. Do I want my kids and my husband proud of me? Of course. But guess what? No one is exempt to believing or doing anything or making me feel any type of way about what my experience is or was.
good.
But that took some healing. So you're correct.
Yeah.
I like to tell survivors, everyone doesn't have the right to hear your story. Everyone
Right.
doesn't need to know your story. Everyone can't handle your story. It's hard enough for us to handle our own story. So if you
Mhm.
choose to share it, be sure you want to share it with someone who can handle
Yes.
it or can hold it for you. If they can't, they're just not your people. And
Yeah.
sometimes
Exactly.
you tell it to the wrong people and you realize they can't handle your story. And those just aren't your people for the season in your life. So it's yours. That's your baby. That's something that you carry. That's something that you've been through. And if I share it with you and you're going to throw it back at me or diminish it or minimize it, I just can't share it with you anymore. And so I'm going to move on to what's next. And I also want to add, kind of based on what Dr. Roberts just talked a little bit about, when you want to go date somebody, do your research. Don't assume just because they said everything is okay, everything is okay. Ask some questions, because I bet that she assumed, like you said, that he had never done anything. Come to find out he had. And so it's okay to ask as many questions as you want. It's your life, and it's really up to you to decide if you want to move forward in that relationship with that person or not. So I would
Yeah.
just add that as well. And
And while you're on that topic, real quick, dating. I always tell women there's every city has a clerk of courts. Go in there and it's free information. Go in there, type in their first, last name, and if you got date of birth, type that into, and find out if they have a record. Find out if something happened previously. Find out what their if they had a pattern of something. I'm not saying the first thing you see is a red flag, but pay attention. There are
Mhm.
red flags in there, but there's so much free information you can find out about someone when you're dating them that will give you the decision if you want to go forward with them or not. So that's important when talking to even young ladies and stuff about dating. Look them up, check them out.
That's a great point. Look at Mr. Roberts. He's so proud of his wife.
I know.
All right. Anybody else? So I just want to thank you all so much. If you guys don't have anything else to share, I know it's Wednesday night and it's time tomorrow. We got to get up. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for your honesty, your transparency. Please,
Thank you for doing this.
Banners up real quick. So Loriana, she has her company that she works with you, working with your body, the trauma that you've endured. This is the website, but this is the link tree. This is the preferred link because it also has her book and other information on there. It's Linktree Lolo the Coach. She's also on Facebook, Instagram, all the social media platforms. I think you have your own business now, and you do all this kind of wonderful stuff. I've been watching it and I love it, and I know the healing that is needed for survivors because the body keeps score, and so working through the pain helps. Pain to Purpose, Dr. Roberts has her organization based in Florida. I know they do a teen summit. They do a lot of different things, banquets throughout the year. They're helping survivors on the ground. It's pain, the number 2, purpose76.org. Brandy, MSW, she is also licensed in Florida. She's a social worker. She's a counselor. She can walk you through help. Do you want to say something, Brandy? Did I say it right?
I was just going to say, a True You Always is the private practice I work for, and it's me and a bunch of great therapists. So
I think you put it in the chat. Okay, True You Always. I'm going to put it out real quick for you guys to see where you guys can contact her. There's nothing like someone sitting with you when you're going through something. So True You Always is where she works, and you can find her there. True You Always. And last but not least, Now I Can Wear Pink. Dr. Iris Pendleton, nowicanwearpink.com. She's also in Florida, does a lot of great things with women. And it's just, they're all really changing the lives of survivors. And so thank you all so much for joining us. Is anybody, okay? Repeat the lookup resource. Paulette, tell us again what you're looking for. And the domestic violence hotline, thank you, Pain to Purpose, 1-800-799-7233. Or you can text 88788. And to answer the questions, no one should be speaking to you harshly, rudely, calling you out your name, or putting you in dangerous situations, punching walls, throwing things. All of that is a sign of abuse. The moment they put their hands on you, call somebody and get help. Because like Loriana said, sometimes the first time they put their hand on you is the last because you're not here. So, all right, thank you all so much. You're not alone. Your life matters, and we care about you. Next time. Bye.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Please.
Thank you.